If you look up into the sky and see a box parachuting toward you, it could be a Call of Duty care package, a cargo cult's answered prayer, or a mid-century beaver relocation project. As humans encroached on the territory of the North American beaver, we found that these slap-happy rodents are more difficult to move than you might think. But one intrepid employee of Idaho's Fish and Game Department was given some money, a few parachutes, and way too many green lights to solve the problem. But sometimes, you gotta drop your problems into the middle of nowhere, here in life, death, and taxonomy.
Welcome back to Life, Death, and Taxonomy. It's your 30 minutes of interesting animal information. I'm Joe.
And I'm Carlos.
Thank you to Cassie for the creation of our theme song. To hear more of Cassie's music, please search Cassie Michelle on YouTube or Spotify.
And thank you to Johanna for the creation of this week's artwork. To check that out, you can follow us on Facebook or Twitter at LD Taxonomy, or visit us at our home on the web at ldtaxonomy.com. And a very special thank you to our patrons, to Tristan Taylor, Jesse Raspulich, Carol Raspulich, Paul Chomo, and Richard Kaspar. Thank you so much for your support. It's greatly appreciated. Thanks for helping us keep the lights on.
Today we're talking about some rodents that make darns out of their own food. But more on that later.
They are good at making darns. A beaver darn. They couldn't hit the side of a darn door.
We are back in separate studios, which means I can get close to the mic and sound good.
Yeah, I don't have to lean in to try to get in the camera and all that stuff. I'm just right. I'm right center stage.
I definitely apologize for the bumping apocalypse that was the last episode.
Are you apologizing on my behalf? Was that my fault?
I don't know. It was probably both of us just touching the desk. We should have put like a towel underneath the thing. Maybe that would have helped. But
that microphone wiggles. It's like having your mic on a boom is much better.
Yes.
I apologize too.
But
what are we talking about?
We're talking about the North American beaver. This is a classic.
It is a classic.
God's greatest hits
is the beaver. And then a mashup of that greatest hits is the platypus with a beaver tail. But we all know the beaver. But what we're going to call it here is Marshall Mathers. This one, that one was the last minute one, but it works on several different levels because we're going to talk about war later on in the episode. So Marshall. Jerry Mathers is Beaver Cleaver and Leave It to Beaver. So here we land at Marshall Mathers.
They're kind of marshals of the marsh.
They don't really live in marshes.
They kind of make their own marshes.
They live in mountain streams and things like that. But anyway, Marshall
They
Mathers.
live pretty much everywhere there's water.
I would not recommend his music, but I would recommend the show.
Did I tell you that I saw a beaver at your house? Or near your house?
Excuse me?
I saw it was dead, but I'm pretty sure I saw a beaver.
That makes so little sense. There are no beavers here.
There are beavers. I looked it up.
There are beavers in
has
Florida?
Beavers. Yeah, North Florida.
I've never seen a beaver here. Are you sure that it wasn't?
Muskrat?
Recently I drove in the direction that I think you guys drove to go home, and I saw a dead cat that had inflated to like a balloon.
I suppose.
Are you sure that wasn't the beaver?
Cat. It was brown. It was raccoon sized and shaped, but it was brown. And I passed it several times, so I had several good looks at it. Because it was on that ramp that goes to good highway that has
that's a
doesn't have
cat.
a lot of people on it.
That's a cat. I got a good look at that yesterday, and I'm like, oh, look at that dead cat.
That's a cat?
That's a cat.
Oof, it was chunky.
Yeah, but it's one of those things where like as it decomposes, the gases expand.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a big it's a big poofy cat corpse.
So a brown cat, when it decomposes, kind of looks like a beaver.
And that's the description. I mean, what else do you need?
Speaking of description, wait, should we?
No, I got more. I got
Yeah,
more
yeah.
nicknames. The first one was
What are the
Marshall
names?
Mathers. The second one is the Slap Attacker. And the third is the Tuftwaffen. Tuftwaffen. For those who don't know, the Luftwaffen was the German Air Force. And we're going to talk about planes and war and World War II and beavers. So it works. Trust me.
Okay, what does science have to call this thing? What must they call it? It's in the kingdom you know, love, and live inside. The kingdom Animalia. The phylum is Chordata. The class is Mammalia. The order is Rodentia.
It's a rodent. It's a big rat.
It's a big rat. It's not a rat, but it is related to rats in terms of its order. It's in the family Castoridae, which contains 2 living species of beavers and their fossil relatives.
Including the giant beaver.
You're not going to tell me that beavers and muskrats are in the same family?
I guess not.
Muskrats look just like beavers, but they have skinny tails and they're smaller.
They sure do. They sure do.
The genus is Castor, which means it stands in the back and tries to do some DPS.
It's a glass cannon. And it knows the Comet Azure.
Yeah. And the species is Canacadensis.
I think it's just
Castor
Canadensis.
canacadensis.
I'm pretty sure it's just Canadensis.
Canadensis. Castor canadensis.
Canadian witch. The Canadian wizard. Is the Castor canadensis. Since we're in the business of naming things, it's time for my favorite part of the show, critter groups. The part of the show where I ask you, Joe, a question. That question is the same every time. What is the name of a group of this animal, or what is the term of entry, or what is the collective noun? If you saw a group of beavers, would you call that A, a family of beavers, B, a crew of beavers, C, a build of beavers, or D, a den of beavers?
I'm going to go with a crew final answer.
You should have gone with your Fast and Furious roots. It's a family.
I knew it was a family. The
It's
rest
a
were like had to do
fam.
with. I knew it wasn't a den. You might have thrown me with a lodge.
A lodge of
lodge
beavers. Yeah,
of
I
beavers.
did not think
But
of
you threw me
lodge.
with crew, so you didn't need to throw me with anything else.
Yep, it's a family of beavers, which is nice. That's nice.
Mm-hmm.
They roll in families.
Doesn't make any sense. But
Yeah, it does. They're
well, it doesn't make any sense over the countless things you could name a family in the animal kingdom.
I guess, yeah, but these guys are like. Well, I imagine you'll talk about it later, but they are monogamous, and they live with generations of their family members within their dams.
I was not going to talk
long
about
periods of
that,
time.
so it's a good thing you did. But what the heck are we even talking about? How can I even picture a beaver? Never seen one. The only one I've ever seen turned out to be a dead cat. So let's talk about. Let's talk about what they look like.
I've only seen one beaver, and it wasn't a beaver; it was a dead cat.
Beavers are large, thick-furred, and thick-bodied rodents. They're almost always brown. And they have broad heads with beady little eyes. They're kind of cute. Their front teeth, the thing that makes them a little not cute, are extremely large and very durable, and they're constantly growing, kind of like a rabbit. The beavers have a famously flat tail that they will slap the water with to communicate, among other things.
Slap attacker.
They're very good for swimming. And speaking of good for swimming, they have webbed feet, which puts them above other rodents in terms of being in the water, except for maybe a capybara. Don't remember if they have webbed feet. But they like the water.
Yeah.
But that brings me to their size and dimensions in relatable terms. Welcome to the Beloved Measure Up segment, the official listener's favorite, the part of the show. It is the part of the show when we present the animal size and dimensions in relatable terms through a quiz that's fun for the whole family. It's also part of the show that's introduced by you. When you send an audio of yourself saying or chittering the words measure up into ldtaxonomy@gmail.com, this week it is the part of the show that is introduced once again by Melissa, who has sent in an absolute cornucopia of measure ups. Just
lots of variety, lots of flavor.
But apparently it has nothing to do with Fruit of the Loom.
What? Oh yeah, I guess it is a cornucopia.
It's not. Did you know that?
Is it not? What am I thinking
an
of?
example. No, it's an example of
Mandela effect.
The Mandela effect, that everyone pictures the Fruit of the Loom logo with a cornucopia.
There is a logo that has a cornucopia. I think it's, I don't remember what it was. But yeah, the Fruit of the Loom is just like an apple and some grapes.
I remember so much that I remember thinking that a cornucopia was called a loom. That was the loom. Because they're the fruit of it.
I remember seeing a big cornucopia painted on the side of a Publix.
Yes.
The one off of University in Sample.
Oh, wait a minute.
And I think that was the first time I really saw a cornucopia. And I asked my parents what it was. And they're like, it's called a cornucopia.
And there's fruit coming out of it. This is why I thought Fruit of the Loom was like, my brain melted these two things together. Albertsons did this. And I guess Florida Publix has bought them.
Wow, I forgot about Albertsons.
Yeah.
What a boring name for a grocery store.
No, it's down home. It's good. Without further ado, the listener's favorite part of the show.
Measure that thing up, son.
Measure it up.
Whoa.
Measure the thing up.
Okay. If you say so.
I like that.
I like how there's like a sewing machine going on in the background or something like that.
Yeah, so your guess is a sewing machine.
That was the first thing that came to mind.
What do you have a better guess?
Like an old generator.
Measure that thing up, son.
Yeah, an old generator maybe.
I'm going to guess a bounce house.
No, because this bounce houses just sound like powerful fans.
No, bounce house sounds like it's run by a generator usually.
Yeah, but like most of the noise comes from the big fan that's blowing into it.
All right, what do you think it is? You think it's what is the generator doing?
It's an old generator, which is why it's like clunking around. Otherwise, it would be purring. I used to work in a shop next to a bunch of like big machines, and some of them made that a sound that's similar to that. One of them ran on a generator, so that's just what I was thinking. Yeah, it's probably a sewing machine.
It's probably like a ice machine or something like that.
A lot of woodpeckers.
It's just got a metric ton of woodpeckers.
A bag of woodpeckers.
But thank you again to Melissa for sending in a measure up intro. If you would like to help Melissa, who is currently putting the team on her back, send in a measure up intro to ldtaxonomy@gmail.com. You
Give
just
me
record it
that
into your phone.
5% hedge
Oh, that's right.
for this.
So because we got a new measure up intro, Carlos gets 5% towards his nursing school victory 80% requirement to win each of these questions. So let's talk body length. 74 to 90 centimeters or 29 to 35 inches. How many beavers go into the length of the Fort Peck Dam in the Missouri River? Here's a hint. The Fort Peck Dam is the largest in the U.S. by volume, with 125,628,000 cubic yards of water. I don't know what that means. Where is the
Every
water?
day?
Is it inside the dam? Does it go through the dam? Is it being held back by the dam? No idea. I try to find out what volume is when it comes to a dam, and they were talking about the surface area of the dam and in the calculating. No idea. But it's
a hydroelectric dam, so it uses the water that's coming, the pressure of the water that's coming toward it to turn turbines and generate electricity.
So
that's my freshman answer to that.
But you didn't answer the question.
That means it sounds like that amount of water goes through the system of the dam to turn the turbines.
So that's a good system of a dam.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess
but
daily.
It was built. Yeah, I don't know. And that seems that seems like what the dam controls. Like you can't really say the water behind that the dam is holding back is the volume of the dam, because that has to do with the river, I guess. But it was built by the Omaha District of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers in the 1930s.
The length of it is what we're going with.
Mm-hmm. So it's not taller than the Hoover Dam, but it is longer.
And the Hoover Dam's pretty wide.
It's not wide.
I remember
not even in the top 5, I don't think, in the US.
I remember it from Transformers 2. It's like the only movie I remember that has the Hoover Dam in it. I don't know. I'll say maybe 2,000 feet. You said 39 inches?
35.
35 inches. 685 beavers long.
Is that your final answer?
Yep.
Correct answer is 7,208 beavers.
Oh, man. This thing is several miles long.
21,000 feet or 6,409 meters. It's a lot bigger in terms of length than the Hoover Dam.
Yeah, it's almost 4 miles long. That's crazy. That's like you start and then you're like, you can barely even see where it ends.
Yeah, so like it's in the Missouri River, so a lot of times dams have to be wide. The Hoover Dam is strategically placed.
What is this thing called?
Fort Peck.
I want to see this thing. 4 mile long. Yeah. Huh. That does not look like 4 miles.
Take it up with Wikipedia.
I will. I'll fight Wikipedia.
They're always struggling, asking for donations. I think that's punching down.
Because it's punching down. Oh, they can't do that. Can't. Never mind. Never mind. They're right. I'm sorry.
Yes, if they're. Let's talk weight. They're 20 kilograms or 44 pounds. Quite a hefty little rat. So, how many buckets of bacon grease available at Buc-ee's go into the weight of a beaver?
Your obsession with Buc-ee's.
Buc-ee's, the mascot is a beaver.
This gas station farmer's market.
I was just at Buc-ee's this last week, and we're talking about their mascot, the beaver. What else would I talk about? And here's a hint. Buc-ee's is a Texas-based convenience store where everything is bigger. You can buy all kinds of things from Buc-ee's, including jerky from the 20-foot jerky counter, deer feeders, barbecue brisket, tents, beaver nuggets, and a savory version of the beaver nugget called Buc-ee's Nuggies.
Oh my gosh. That's disgusting.
Buc-ee's is also incredibly litigious, and they will sue. They have already sued 2 corporations that have vaguely similar iconography, and another corporation that had a similar layout to their store.
Oh, there's no way they've patented their layout.
And then they also tried to sue an employee that I guess went to work for another, was it an employee retention lawsuit? But it didn't. They lost that one, but they won the other ones.
They have a non-compete for their open air farmers market.
You need to go to Buc-ee's because you have no concept of what it is.
I really don't. It doesn't really. I mean, barbecue always sounds good, but I can also get barbecue
It's like a Walmart and a gas station mixed, except for the Walmart portion has employees in it.
Yeah, none of what you just described sounds like something I would want to go out of my way to go visit.
It's a Walmart in that it has a ton of stuff, but it's not a Walmart in terms of there's people around to help you and cash you out. And
Walmart is not made infinitely better by the presence of more employees looking at their phones.
It is made a little bit better by the presence of attentive employees.
True. So it's, I don't know, Target in a gas station?
Yeah, I guess a Walmart with better employees and better stuff is Target.
Chef kiss. Love it.
But it's smaller. It's bigger than a Wawa, smaller than
a bread box. What is the metric that I'm working with here?
So Buc-ee's sells bacon grease, buckets of bacon. Sells buckets of bacon grease. And how many
is that for their Bucky bits? Their Buc-ee's Nuggies.
Yeah, Buc-ee's. So let me ask you this, since we're on the business of Buc-ee's, what do you think a beaver nugget is?
I'm gonna go with a small fried piece of meat made out of beaver.
You think Buc-ee the beaver would sell his own kin?
Yes.
It's disgusting.
Have you ever been to Butts on the Creek?
Have
you ever been to Los Pollos Hermanos?
That doesn't exist.
Have you ever been to Zaxby's?
No.
Zaxby's, their mascot is a chicken, and they sell just chicken. They sell primarily chicken.
That's horrific. But it's not meat at all. You'd think it was, consider they have 20 feet of jerky. 20 miles of jerky seems like their next thing. I feel like they can do it. Beaver nuggets are kind of like a sweet puff Cheeto. It's kind of like a big corn pop.
Beaver nuggets or Buc-ee's Nuggies?
Buc-ee's Nuggies is a savory version of a beaver nugget.
Oh, got it.
Buc-ee's Nuggies is basically a Cheeto.
I can't.
I hope somebody tries to steal Buc-ee's Nuggies, so there are long,
protracted legal
meetings.
debates about very,
That
very
include the
serious
term
lawyers
Buc-ee's
and
Nuggies.
Your Honor, the prosecutor brings its argument before the court. Buc-ee's Nuggies has been stolen.
Your client intentionally copied the flavor and shape of Buc-ee's Nuggies.
The flavor, shape, and contour and texture of the Buc-ee's Nuggies. And like the lawyer like has to stifle a chuckle.
Falcon and Buc-ee's Nuggies.
Oh. I don't want to think about
Instead of like the Avengers, if Bucky got the shield, the Avengers would have been renamed to Buc-ee's Nuggies.
It would be more like a band, like Bucky and the Nuggies,
Yeah.
like Hootie and the Blowfish.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, what are we talking about? Oh, bacon grease or beaver grease or whatever the heck you were talking about. How much in a day? Ever?
No.
I don't want to think about this anymore.
How many of these grease buckets go into the weight of a beaver, essentially?
Oh, a bucket of grease.
Bacon grease, yeah.
And this is 44 pounds. Goodness.
It should be called Bucky's Beaver Grease.
I'm going to say
I
5.
wish it was.
Oh gosh, you can do a lot with Buc-ee's.
Is that the final answer?
Yep, 5.
The correct answer is 6 buckets of Bucky's Beavers.
That sounds like a nursing school victory to me.
You can buy a 7.3 pounds of bucket. A 7.3 pound bucket of bacon grease from Bucky's.
And then you're gonna get sued if you just rip open the cap and drink it in front of all the employees.
No, they encourage that kind of behavior. You'll get sued if you
It's a
try to
microaggression.
take the secret of Bucky's Beaver Grease and bring it to
Sell it to Plankton.
sell it to Wawa or whatever. Yeah.
Wawa's desperately trying to get the secret of Bucky's bacon grease. They're trying to replicate the Bucky's Nuggies formula. Ravioli, show me the Bucky's Nuggiolis. Gosh. Before this joke gets any dumber, I achieved a nursing school victory just now, so I expect praise.
Did you need the 5%?
No, I got 83%.
Wow.
I'm good to go. Pass fail.
Nice. That's 88. It's close to an A. Yeah, an A plus.
Basically.
A B plus. Thanks, Melissa, for the B plus. On that one.
Yeah.
Are you ready to talk about fast facts before we get into the major fact?
Absolutely.
Okay, beavers live in North America. Who knew? The North American beaver lives in North America.
I had a sneaking suspicion, but I wasn't sure.
They live from Mexico to Canada. They were once more ubiquitous than they are now, but the fur trade caused their numbers to drop dramatically between the 17th and 19th century. It was a long trade. Long boom for beavers.
Mm-hmm.
A bust for beavers, a boon for beaver traders. Beaver populations were saved when people stopped being interested in fur hats. Fair enough. I'm surprised that fur hats were as popular as they were for that long.
Well, I mean, Peter Pevensey wanted to turn Beaver into a hat in the Chronicles of Narnia. So that was one of the first things he said when Beaver started to get annoying. I'm gonna turn this sentient creature into a hat.
Well, he had to go away for the war, so he was homeschooled, so that makes sense that he's kind of behind on fashion.
And on ethics. I met a talking beaver and I want to kill him and turn him into a hat.
Homeschoolers are usually ahead on ethics. and reading comprehension. Beavers are semi-aquatic and spend a ton of time in the water and on land. They are probably most famous for building dams or lodges, which are aquatic structures made of wood and other materials. Beavers eat wood, which is something that sounds like it's a myth that you thought in your childhood, but it is actually true.
Yep.
They eat the bark. They also eat all kinds of vegetations, including leaves, figs, inner bark, and shoots. So they could eat shoots and ladders, technically.
As long as they're
not
wooden
too much
ladders.
lacquer on the ladder, yeah.
And as long as it's not a metal ladder.
Yeah. Their strong incisors are capable of chomping down trees, which they use to construct dams. They also use rocks, mud, and vegetation to construct their dams. The beavers are sent into a building and repair frenzy if they hear the sound of trickling water. Researchers tested this by playing a recording of trickling water in the middle of a dry field, which the beavers covered with sticks and mud.
Oh my gosh. That's hilarious.
They covered a tape recorder with sticks and mud because they heard the sound of
They
water.
were so confused, but like they knew what they had to do. They just didn't know they have the strength to do it.
Yeah. I know what I must do.
And they're like crying. It's like, I know what I
have to cover this weird little metal robot thing.
looks at his beaver wife. Will you help me?
The largest dam ever discovered was 2,790 feet or 850 meters long. That's longer than the length of the Hoover Dam.
That's impressive.
It was discovered from satellite imagery.
Yeah, I think I saw that on Open Season.
Watching beavers do this, build these dams, is adorable. Watching a small woodland creature go about its business like it's in like the wind in the willows is really adorable. Like carrying sticks and patting them down, getting some mud, putting it down. It's funny and good, and I like it.
I saw a while ago, I saw a video of these people that had, I guess, taken in an injured beaver and rehabilitated it, but was living in their house. And they called it Justin Beaver. And they were just filming it running around, picking up whatever it could find and just stacking it in the bathroom. Where the water was. And she's just following around going like, he's so busy. He's just like constantly running around until he started to knot their chair legs. And so they're like, oh, no, Justin, stop.
So busy beaver is quite accurate.
Yeah.
So dams are built to maintain high water levels in an area, which floods surrounding woodlands and gives beavers more access to food sources. Beavers can move around on land just fine, but they are much faster in the water. So if you have to escape a mountain lion or a bear or a wolf, it's way easier for them in the water. They also dig channels that lead further into the woods from their ponds. So they have these ponds that flood the area, and then they dig tunnels into the woods that are underwater. Pretty ingenious.
It's like London to Paris.
Beavers will carry fresh branches to their lodges and stick them in the mud deep under the dam or deep under the lodge. In winter, the surface of the pond freezes and preserves vegetation to be eaten through the winter. So David Attenborough calls this their refrigerator. Because of this method, beavers don't have to hibernate. They usually stay awake through the winter.
Just deep,
so a beaver
deep in the lodge.
Yeah. And on top of that, a beaver lodge contains dry nesting chambers, or usually just one dry nesting chamber that's above the water line. And the entrance to the lodge is underwater and difficult to access for many of the beaver's most common predators. And the top of the lodge is quite strong. It's a collection of rocks, sticks, and mud. That even so much so that a bear would have trouble getting into it. So,
if I was a bear, I would be like, This is my project for the winter, or for the summer, I guess. In the winter, I gotta sleep.
Yeah, and you can't be taking on projects. You need a lot of like quick investments as a bear, or you'll starve to death.
Yeah, little and often fills the purse, so I'm gonna go to the salmon run.
Yeah. So winter causes snow and ice to cover the lodge, creating a warm igloo-like chamber. In a BBC documentary, you can see heat rising out of the top, like a vent in the lodge. So like in the middle of winter. So it's warm in there. They did it. The ultimate.
They fixed living in Canada.
They did. It's it's an actual lodge. Like you ski down the mountain, go to a lodge. You're comfortable. You have a nice hot cocoa. It's warm in there.
Yeah, like the Moose Lodge.
Mm-hmm.
Loyal Order of Beavers.
It should have been the Beaver Lodge.
Yeah, really should have.
So they apparently muskrats. And I thought about not doing this. Maybe we do a muskrat episode later. But muskrats will get up in their lodges and they'll share it with them. And we're not sure if like it's just too dark in the lodge for the beavers to like know when the muskrats are in there. Or as David Attenborough posits, the muskrats bring in fresh bedding all the time. So they think that maybe
they rent it.
At least David Attenborough thinks like they're paying rent. Yeah, like they allow them to stay because they bring fresh bedding and improve the lodge. So that's fun that these two beaver-like furry woodland creatures share a lodge.
Yeah, I'd be like, and then the muskrat goes and tells the stoat, and it's like, come on, man, it was just you. And then the stoat goes and tells the chipmunk, and suddenly you have every furry woodland creature that's desperately trying to swim to your house and crash your flat. You give a mouse you get a mouse a cookie, and he's gonna want milk with it.
You feed him for a day. You give a muskrat a bed.
And then he goes and tells the stoat. I have two fast facts quickly. I didn't know if you were going to cover them. Beavers secrete a chemical from their butts that smells just like vanilla and is actually an FDA-approved natural vanilla flavoring. So there is legitimately a chance that if you've had something that's vanilla flavored but not actual vanilla, that they're using beaver butt juice. Take that and love it.
Take that and put it in your Bucky's Nuggies. Although Bucky's Nuggies are cheese flavored,
yeah, that would be
weird.
weird.
Are a more likely candidate for beaver butt juice.
Yeah. And then also up until the 11th century, many people believed that in an ancient Egyptian myth that beavers knew that hunters were after the castoreum oil that's housed in their testicles. And since they knew hunters were after them for that, they would gnaw them off. So that is not true. Their nuggies are inside their bodies. So they,
as you would want them to be if you lived in Canada.
Right. You want to keep that stuff close. You want to play that close to the chest.
Close to the test.
And also no one's ever seen like a healthy beaver do this. So
yeah,
it's not the case.
Who knew we would have so many facts about beaver nuggies?
You've now introduced that into the zeitgeist. They didn't exist before, and now they do. But here's the major fact. The major fact is called the Great Beaver Bombing of 1948. So, it's 1948. Beavers and people have come into contact in Idaho. People were moving into the more rural areas in Idaho at this point, into the northern areas, and They were coming into contact with beavers, and if you rely on things like streams and trees to live or to just in your house and in your neighborhood and things like that, and then suddenly beavers come and radically change the landscape, either dam up the stream or create a lake where there wasn't a lake before, or cut down a bunch of trees or start eating into your own house, we got some problems. So the state packed them into boxes and dropped them into the remote Chamberlain Basin from airplanes using old parachutes from World War II. So for you out there in podcasting, there's some details. There's a Popular Mechanics article from 1949 that had some baffling things to say about it, and what was even more baffling was the lack of details that they included. I read this and I was like, I have so many questions, and then I read a follow-up article from 2015 from the Boise State Public Radio, and I was like, my questions have been answered. But the Popular Mechanics article, the old 1949 one, they said they couldn't load them into a truck and drive them to a new location because, quote, the animals often perished because they were kept away from water too long. And my first question was, they're not axolotls. They don't need to be covered in water to survive. They like water, but like you don't need to constantly keep them moist for them to live. They do need to drink water, however, and that is one way to kill an animal, is to not give it water to drink. But that's true of pretty much every animal. So I think a better solution would have been to drive them over and give them water to drink. Like take care of the animals that you're trying to take care of. It's like, oh man, we tried to drive them, but it's like a 2-day drive, and I mean, we didn't give them any food or water, and they just kept dying. So we needed a shorter trip.
Imagine that. So
we chucked them out of airplanes. Then we didn't have to feed them, and they didn't die. Anyway, the Boise State Public Radio has an article that kind of goes into depth on this, and mentions that the basin, the Chamberlain Basin, where the beavers were dropped, is in an area what is now known as the Frank Church River of No Return Wilderness Area. Which, I mean, it sounds like it belongs in the Galaxy of Terror from Futurama. But the point is that it's been a protected forest for 100 years, and it was then, as it is now. And just like now, there weren't any real drivable roads through it or to it. And that meant that transporting beavers via a truck or something like that, not doable. It's a bunch of wilderness. There's no roads. So you would have to take trails with horses and mules. And it turns out that horses and mules are easily spooked by beavers, or at least irritable ones.
You don't say.
And so it's not viable to transport the beavers because there were a lot of altercations between people and horses and mules and beavers that often resulted in beavers being kicked.
Altercations.
So it's not really viable to haul them at all into the River of No Return. So that made a lot more sense. They didn't. Driving them was not. The Popular Mechanics article seems like it would have you believe that they didn't drive them because they refused to give them water. But the reality was that there was actually no way to actually drive them there, and taking them there via horse or mule was also not viable. So the second thing was that the 1949 Popular Mechanics article talks about how a skilled mountain pilot needs to drop the boxes of beavers a few hundred feet above the ground and try to get them as close to a stream as possible. And it mentioned that a male and female would be dropped close together so that they could start a family. But I could not figure out how the beavers got out of their boxes once they landed. Like the aquarium fish at the end of Finding Nemo, like they escaped and now they're just floating in the ocean in their bags. But the Boise Radio article came in clutch again with an answer for this one too. So it turns out that beavers, like you said, they like to eat wood. In fact, they really like to eat wood. And when eating their favorite things coincides with, I don't know, gaining your freedom, a wooden box does not really pose as much of an obstacle. It's like you being trapped in like a Kinder Egg or a flavor blasted goldfish. It's like, yeah, I'm getting out of this.
It's like being trapped in a Bucky's Nuggie.
it's like being trapped, or like when in VeggieTales when the USS Apple Pies was about to be destroyed by a ball of popcorn. It's like, I have a solution for this, and it's eat all the popcorn.
It's like James and the Giant Peach.
Yes, it's like James and the Giant Peach, except they weren't trapped in the giant peach.
Right.
It was a vehicle that they ate. It was a vehicle that they ate. So the problem was that the beavers would actually start to eat their way out immediately. As soon as they were put inside. So they didn't want that happening while they were, because they had this like woven thatch box that the idea is that it would like they would land and then they could eat their way out, but they would eat their way out right away. So there's a good chance of them eating their way out while they were on the plane, or worse, eating their way out while they're on their way down. And so the guy, so it's just picturing like the whale from the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. It's just coming to terms with the world around it as it falls. But the guy they picked to solve this issue, his name was Elmo Heater or Heater. I'm going to say Heater. Elmo Heater. He designed what?
Like Napoleon Dynamite.
Elmo Heater? Elmo Heater? Oh, John Heater. Yeah, so he designed a special box that was weighted in a way that it was designed to break on impact. But he needed to test it. You can't just chuck a bunch of beavers out into the river of no return in untested boxes. Elmo knew better. So he found an old male beaver as his test subject. And guess what he named it?
Justin Beaver?
In 1949 or 48. No, he named him
Bucky?
Geronimo.
Oh, that's fair.
He named him Geronimo the beaver. He put him in the box and they dropped him from a plane over and over and over again. I mean, it was a parachute, so each time was a parachute. And here's a quote from Elmo himself. Quote, "Poor fellow. He finally became resigned, and as soon as we approached him, he would crawl back into his box, ready to go aloft again." There's so much delightful 1940s language in both the Popular Mechanics article, like the animals often perished because they were kept away from water, or ready to go aloft again. So I guess it seems like Geronimo was a pretty good sport after he got used to it. His reward that he was the first beaver to be dropped into the river of no return, this basin.
But he stayed in his box thinking he was going up in the wild blue yonder once more. He got a taste for the sunshine and clouds. He can't go back. He can't go back to the damn life.
Did you read this article? Because that's exactly what he did.
Wait, what?
It took him several days to leave the box because he thought he was going back.
That's so Pixar. I want this to be a movie. Geronimo the Beaver. This is at least a short.
It's so Pixar short, yeah. But they dropped him there with 3 plucky female beavers. So lucky guy. He's like Adam in his Garden of Eden if he was a Mormon. With his multiple wives. And so once they did this, they moved 76 beavers this way by dropping them out of airplanes and in these boxes. And out of all of them, only one of them died, which I think is a success. I mean, it's not good that any beavers died, but hey, you managed to move 75 beavers without hurting them, and everyone seems to consider this as a success. Elmo himself said in a report titled "Transplanting Beavers," he said the savings in man hours. Oh, well, here let's stay it in what I imagine Elmo's voice was. The savings in man hours and in the mortality of animals is quite evident. Sex ratios are maintained. The beavers are healthier and in better condition to establish a colony. I kind of messed that up, but just pour that transatlantic accent all over it.
That's a nursing school victory, though, for that.
That's for sure. That's that's pretty good. It's like a 98% or 98 point something percent. But this seems like this crazy harebrained scheme, but it seems like it was the best option given their resources at the time. And now they're living happily in Frank Church's River of No Return wilderness area. Yeah, that's the story of the one time we airdropped beavers with World War II parachutes, leftover World War II parachutes, and that's why they are the Tuftwaffen. Even though the paratroopers were not. Anyway,
I just can't stop thinking about Geronimo and his newfound love for the
skies.
For the skies above. Yeah.
I mean, I think he became like an adrenaline junkie.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they had to catch him. For a while, they had to catch him. Like the thing would break and he would escape, and they'd have to go get him again and then put him back in the box. And I'm sure that was pretty traumatic for him.
Every hero has an arc.
Or he just gets Stockholm syndrome and he falls in love with the box.
Well, it's your food and house, and thing that's keeping you from falling to your death. So it's a lot of things. He was once a man, a beaver man of the underwater, of the lodge. A lodge's beaver.
A beaver man of a lodge.
Beaver.
Geronimo was a beaver's beaver.
But he became a beaver of the skies. A maverick, if you will.
Oh yeah, I gotta watch that movie. I saw it. But yes, that's the Great Beaver Bombing of 1948. Do you have anything else?
That's all I got.
All right, for you out there in Podcastia, it's the beaver. So build your house upon the rock. Don't bite off your Bucky's Nuggies beaver bits. And parachute into your own polygamous Eden, like Geronimo the beaver here in Life, Death, and Taxonomy.
Hey Taxonomy Titans, I just want to remind you that we now have a Patreon. Patrons can see full video episodes and get shoutouts on the show. But ultimately, it's a way for you to help us cover some costs and get even better. Still, reviews are the best way to help us grow. So if you haven't left one yet, we'd really love to hear from you. As always, thanks for listening and engaging.
Life, Death, and Taxonomy is my favorite in the world podcast.
There's some foul advice.
Hey, don't bite off your Bucky's Nuggies is good advice.
It's good advice, but foul nonetheless.